We're just waiting on Instagram. All right, we are welcome back, guys. We are live. Welcome back to the After Action Project, episode 99. Tonight we are joined by Brian and Shane. Brian is of the Complete Combatant, and Shane is of Personal Survival Solutions. We're going to be talking about their Irregular Warfare-Singleton operator course. Before we get into that, let's reintroduce you folks to our show sponsors. This might be familiar to you, Brian. Locked In Grip. You're one of the creators of that fantastic product. Have you ever lost that perfect grip after shooting multiple rounds, or had your sweaty grips diminish the ability to hang onto your firearm in different weather conditions? Locked In Grip is a grip enhancer that keeps your hands free of moisture to create a slip-free connection to the action of shooting your firearm. Locked In Grip Liquid Shooting Sports Chalk is made for shooters by shooters. Visit lockedingrip.com. That's lockedingrip.com to purchase your liquid shooting sports chalk now. It is an absolute game changer for me as both an instructor, a student, and a shooter when I'm out there on the range. It's something that, for me as an instructor, if I can give my students one less thing to worry about outside of what actually affects their accuracy, it can be a real game changer for them, right? And one of the things that we'll often see is students kind of milking their grip or shifting their grip, and then they'll do oh man, I'm nervous because I'm in front of two very good looking, attractive firearms shooting instructors, and you know what I mean? At least that's my experience. I don't know if you guys have that.
That wasn't my experience at this class, I can tell you that.
Hey now.
Individual results may vary, okay? But it's one of those things, if I can pull out either the 10 mil or the 5 mil, right? I can pull it out, give them a little squirt on that, and just kind of have them working into their hands, that 5 seconds or so that it takes for them to kind of rub it into their hands and just kind of, hey, breathe, relax. It's not a big deal. And then I notice that that's one less thing that they're thinking about, one less thing that they're worrying about. And it just kind of helps me. I also worry about one less thing that they're doing or that they need to work on. And everything else that they're working on, right? For new shooters, if they don't have to think about readjusting their grip as they're trying to figure out how to make that front sight stop moving as much, and then am I standing correctly, all that other good stuff. So I can tell you I absolutely love it as an instructor. I've shot a couple classes with it. I took it out to Tim's place a few months ago, and I used it on the range. We were out on the range a couple weeks ago with Andy. He gets a kick out of it every time I put it on because I use way too much. And I've watched the YouTube videos. I've read your guys' instructions on it. And for whatever reason, psychologically, I'm just like, more is better. But it doesn't leave
The good thing about Jeremy is going to keep you guys in business, right?
Yeah.
Because, a dab will do you with Locked In Grip. I just use maybe not even a dime size, and Jeremy has half the bottle on his hand and he slaps it and it goes everywhere. And, it makes a big deal. Everybody watches him and they're like, what are you doing? So I don't know. Works pretty good.
The cool thing though, and I don't know, maybe you need to have a different formula that will leave my clothes chalky, because it doesn't, right? No matter how much I put on there, it stays on my hand. It's not coming off when I'm working on, it doesn't look like I just ate a bag of marshmallows on my shirt when I'm done with the range day. So whatever you guys are doing, man, that's awesome. Keep it up. LockedInGrip.com will get you yours. So be sure to check them out. If you have any experience with it, feel free to shoot us an email.
Excuse me?
Shoot us an email. Shoot Andy, not us, right? Shoot us an email and let us know about your experience with it. And our other show sponsor is the Range Buddy app, rangebuddy.app. It's available on Android and iTunes. It's a collection of over 160 shooting drills, all sorted by the required target type, filterable by the skills you're working on. There's a virtual instructor that I hope folks are using. It's a pretty cool, it has some pretty cool functionality in there. There's a dry fire tool and tracker, all kinds of cool stuff. You can put yourself on a leaderboard, see how you rank compared to your buddies and other folks that are shooting those drills. And in the next 2 weeks, we have a pretty big update that we're going to be rolling out. Until then, it's kind of on a hush deal until we get some final things worked out. But Andy, what are your thoughts on the Range Buddy app? I know you've got to be a beta tester for a bunch of that, and
Jeremy made me do it, by the way. But at the end of the day, I love it. It's a great app. Really, just being able to go on there, find a drill of the month, go in and find just pretty much any drill that you see, a fancy drill that you see online, or someone's discussing it within a Facebook page. You can go find that app and actually work it without having to do, print it or write it down. Any of that stuff, you have it at the palm of your hand. It's really cool. I want to step back on locked-in grip. Brian, I don't know if you know this or not, but I always come up with really good ideas. Okay. So if anybody's watching the show right now, you see Jeremy's face. That is not his hair. That is actually a sunburn on his face. So if you take locked-in grip, you add a little sunblock to it, you can put it on your hands and your face. Double win. Just saying.
Coming soon to a store near you.
That's not a bad idea. The first few range sessions of the year, I forget the sunscreen, right? But it was completely unrelated to shooting. It was my son and daughter. They had soccer games this past weekend, and I was out there in the sun for 15 minutes. I'm a ginger, so I burn pretty quick. So lesson learned. I ordered a couple extra bottles of sunscreen. But let's get into what you guys are all here for. Let's start talking about the class, right? The Irregular Warfare-Singleton Operator course brought to you by Brian and Shane. Before we get into that, or as you get into that, Brian, reintroduce yourself to our listeners. What got you into the shooting industry? And then I kind of want, after we get Shane's intro, I kind of want you guys to talk about the meeting of the minds and how you guys created this course.
Sure. I got into the industry as a martial arts instructor. I've been teaching since I was 18. I'm 59 now. And I've got 4 decades of coaching experience. I was an amateur and pro fighter. I worked with the Fulton County Sheriff's Office as a reserve officer for a while. I did a long apprenticeship with a group called Center Mass Tactical, where I worked on my rifle and precision skills and some pistol. And my wife told me that I was getting too old to fight once upon a time, so I decided to find something that was just as challenging and just as dangerous. So I got back into shooting, and I decided that it's something I wanted to pursue. And I've been teaching for the last 11, 12 years, firearms classes, but mostly it was force on force to start with because I had an MMA gym at the time. And COVID and a legal battle with the county moved me out on the road. So I've been teaching on the road for the last 3 years, and I'm doing about 40 classes a year.
Holy cow, 40 classes a year.
Yeah.
Well, Shane left us. I don't blame him. He's like any other good person and just walking out on me. Oh, there he is. Awesome. Shane, welcome back. Are you with us?
Yeah.
Awesome. Hey, hey, we're going to work through it tonight. Talk to us a little bit about your background in the firearms industry and what brought you together with Brian.
I'm a recruiter guy. Went in the early out and reconnaissance and doing that in Korea and the DMZ. Went to the 82nd, did the same thing, got started operations, and in '99 I went to Special Forces, where I was picked up there and went through the courses, Delta Special Forces Medical Sergeant. About 5 years of my life there. Got to 5th Special Forces in September of '02. Right away went to our in-house sniper course, went to Fort Bragg or Fort Lee now, and challenged level 1 course. Came back from that, pretty much packed and ready to go for the invasion of Iraq. So I served as a junior medic, did OIF1, invasion, OIF2, OIF3, and it was pretty busy. So I went down to the same course that I started out with and started as a senior instructor for a while and promoted operationally again and did company operation time, and then got to pick my own team. And so I got 11 deployments overseas, 8 of them in the global winter. 7, I started the armed citizens side, where I was doing class, medical, And that took me up through retirement in 18. Encouragement from other instructors. They were like, hey, you should get into this. So I did. I started PSS and did a whole bunch of stuff out of the gate as retirement. I had the company going. We picked up the track and we did that for a year. We were teaching their long range stuff. I was working for risk mitigation and crisis resolution company. Didn't have enough part-time at Roll Range USA in Nashville. Went full-time and then training manager for a while. 3 years ago, that was all too much. So my wife and I just started doing this full-time. Kind of how I got in. The eventual case I got from the military and working with citizens, and I did this company. And we've got a pretty full course catalog. I still retain my in the state of Georgia. So I am certified to practice medicine in a state that I don't live in. But I keep that up. That's a whole story within itself. We teach all the time. Also, law enforcement certified instructor. And that's kind of how we got to where we are now.
Awesome. Hey, we have some we've got some connectivity issues. Are you able to? I'll clean this up in post. But are you able to join from your phone, or are you on your phone?
Computer, probably. Let me see here.
Yeah, because that might be better than the Wi-Fi that you're on.
Okay.
And then or we might try turning the camera off.
Okay.
Although I'd rather you have your face on here because you're much better looking than Andy and I. So
that's not what you told him in pre-show. Don't lie.
I said when I could get my camera going, that picture. So
yeah, just trying to
now he's frozen and he looks like he's just staring us down.
He didn't like that last comment.
Yeah, well, I know Andy's a bully on here. All right, we're gonna so we'll keep working on the audio and the connection issues on our end, guys. And I should be able to get it cleaned up in post. While we're working on that, Brian, why don't you introduce our listeners to the Irregular Warfare-Singleton operator course, and kind of how you guys got together on that course offering.
Shane and I have trained together. He's come to my classes. I've gone to his classes, and as all good instructors should do. And we felt like we wanted to do a class together. And we were talking about doing kind of a rifle pistol performance class. And I had this idea of why don't we kind of make a class that's not just based around one or the other. They're separately, but let's put them together. I had just recently watched the Christian Craighead video from Nairobi with the SAS, and it struck me that in this world of sometimes lawlessness or political problems, that there are certain situations where you might be by yourself and you might have a rifle and a pistol, or you might only have your pistol. And how can we get people more competent with this? Because people buy a lot of gear, but they don't often get to work it together and see how well it works on the range. They also don't get to feel the differences between shooting a very good rifle and a very good pistol. Mostly in rifle classes, the pistol is, the failure remedy when you have nothing else to go to. And I think people live in a world of what I like to call the three phases of preparedness. Sometimes it's just very little what you have on a daily basis, which may be your concealed pistol and a pepper spray and a knife. And then there's kind of a phase two where you might have a battle belt or you might have a truck gun. And we've seen some incidences in the news where those have been particularly useful. Or you might have some warning, and you could get all your kit together and be particularly prepared for it. And I think it's really interesting to get people together to shoot at their highest level and work on each of those together and see how the equipment fits together with it. So I think it was a match made in heaven with Shane and I working on this, because we did a back and forth every hour or so, and we changed. Now he had the first full hour because zeroing rifles is always a lot of fun, but we worked back and forth, and I got to feel the difference between running a pistol, running a rifle, and especially with her everyday concealed carry instead of from a battle belt.
That's cool, man. That sounds good. And I'm interested to dive into that a little bit more. Before we do that,
Yep.
Craig, introduce yourself to our listeners, and then I want you to finish that up, that part of the conversation up with what the heck brought you to this class.
So I'm Craig Cottle. I'm the director of Nature Reliance School out of Kentucky. I teach things. I started out much like Brian. I started out teaching martial arts and combatives for a number of years. Had a couple of injuries that basically one of my docs said, "You better quit, or I'm going to cut one of your arms off." And so I had to go that route because I had some pretty significant issues in one of my arms. And so I had already been at that time teaching some of my combative students basically wilderness skills, and just started doing that on a larger scale. And now that's what I do. I run Nature Reliance School out of Kentucky. I'm the author of 8 books. I teach survival and land navigation, man tracking. I'm also a certified master naturalist. I teach courses for several universities. With United States military government contractor in man tracking and SEER and survival, federal law enforcement as well. So what brought me to this class, what got me into shooting in general, was when I started. I've done judo for nearly 30 years, and I feel like I've been doing judo for nearly 30 years. My spine doesn't work real well. My hips don't work real well. So I wanted to add some tools to the toolbox to help me. And this started probably about 17, 18 years ago when I saw that I was going to have some injuries that were going to prevent me from continuing to hit people with the earth. So I started training in some firearms, first like fighting pistol, self-defense with pistol type coursework. And then that grew into fighting rifle, defense with rifle and stuff of that nature. Shane and I did some man tracking training together a few years ago, and just I really dig Shane and Callie. They're just good people. Been following one another on social media for a while. They're a part of one of my groups on social media. So it's like all of us here. Brian hit it on the head. I'm committed to continuing to be a student of things as I grow, and even in the things that I teach. So, man, me and Shane have talked about this for a long time, but trying to get to a class to train is difficult. When you're teaching, like I've got 81 courses on the schedule this year. So it's hard to find time. So I committed to it. I don't know, Shane, whenever you all schedule this right off the bat, Brian, I don't know when it was, but I signed up for it because I actually shut a course down that I was teaching so that I could come, because I was like, I've got to make this happen. So that's what got me to this particular course, opportunity to train with somebody new, which is Brian. I'd never met him before, and trained with Shane for the first time, actually, other than the man tracking stuff that we did before. So that's where I'm at. And that's why I'm here.
So this sounds like one of those one of those courses where you, let me see, what's the saying? You use your pistol to fight to your right. I don't know. What is something like that? Shane, is that what it is? He's back, so I'll give him an opportunity to talk so we can test his audio.
Yeah, thanks. I think Brian probably hit part of it as we were, getting together on this. But, we wanted to, really put something together for folks with some of the different things that are going on, in the world right now. And, we have to understand, and, students have to understand that they are, the first responder. And so, having the ability to work with whatever tools you have, rifle and or pistol, and understand which one is the best tool to solve that problem was kind of the genesis for this. And I'm sure Brian probably hit it, but there's, some historic examples of things where, there's been natural disasters or active shooter or whatever that, people have had to respond to that. And so we wanted to kind of bring that to the forefront and bring it to people to have the ability to be able to protect themselves and the people that they care about.
So is this a 1-day class, a 2-day class? Kind of what's the format? Any classroom material, or is it all on the range?
We did 2 days, and Shane did the morning class. He did his mindset portion of it, and then he had the rifle zeroing, and then we swapped back and forth during the next 2 days. And a lot of things are similar to a normal class. The idea of building fundamentals and basics with it, but also we did some drills that were very interesting. Shane had him doing from shooting from different positions. We actually shot out to 300 yards with this class too, so it wasn't just 25 yards and in. So they got to really feel the way that the rifle gives you a true advantage, and the places where it was a little harder to live with and to work with, and when the pistol was a really good option. And it was very interesting to watch the change back and forth, especially in the world of optics, what a difference it made going from a rifle that doesn't move very much to a pistol that has a lot of recoil in it, and watching the growth of the students in that. And I think it was really interesting as an instructor to watch this give and take with it, instead of just you go to the pistol because you have nothing else. It's you're the weapon. You've got to figure out how to work through this, and you have to use the tools that are available to you, whatever they'll be. And we had a large group of alumni from both of us, and some of them were very good pistol shots, and some of them were very good rifle shots. And it was interesting to watch the places where they're weaker and how they could grow with it.
Craig, would you categorize yourself as being better with the rifle or the handgun? Oh, you're on mute.
Tough question. So I see that they're both very useful tools when they need to be used. So, man, I quite frankly, I feel inadequate with both. That's why I train. I mean, I don't know. I'm learning that more than likely the likelihood of me utilizing the rifle is less than the pistol that I carry with me every day. So I trained with the pistol more, but I really enjoy shooting the rifle. So I shoot it because I enjoy it, and I'm getting much better at it. But I'm learning that, again, not to sound like a pity party or anything, but I've got some pretty significant spinal issues, and I'm too stupid or stubborn to make me stop. And so getting in certain positions with the rifle, I found to be problematic. But Shane and Brian were fantastic to help me figure out how to get past those things. But I find the pistol being the tool that I'll be able to utilize more effectively with my certain issues that I've got, I would suppose. And more likely, I mean, it's a tool I carry with me every single day, like a flashlight. So, I mean, I use a flashlight every day. I do a lot of stuff I go to a lot of places where I have my rifle, like a lot of places. I take it wherever I can, but the likelihood of me utilizing it is less. But that doesn't mean I don't want to train with it and get better with it. That's for sure. But hey, I missed that 300 by what, Shane? 2 inches about down there? It wasn't too far, was it?
Yeah, it was close. I mean, you couldn't have gotten any closer, man.
I'm from Kentucky, so I've got to be able to shoot a rifle, right? I can't let my fellow Kentuckians down. I mean, I've got to be able to shoot a rifle, whether I think it's the most likely tool I'll use or not.
Well, and you're American, and that's what helps forge
Exactly.
it.
I thought there was a joke about Kentucky windage there, but I guess not. I don't know.
Hey man, the Kentucky long rifles, it's a CIB badge for a reason. I mean, there's a lot of tradition in that rifle.
Shane, when we're looking at putting together a course, that integrates that kind of uses the rifle and the pistol, or not kind of, right? But you're focusing on two different platforms. What were some of the challenges that you guys faced developing the curriculum? And then I want to kick that same question over to Brian.
Well, I think a big thing, Brian and I talked about, initially, because like for me, with our courses, initially when I started teaching them, I talked a lot about equipment, and I quickly started to realize that people were showing up with what they had. And, one of the things that we wanted to do was be able to guide people in the way to, purchase good equipment, things that fit within their mission set, when they did their individual threat assessment and that. But so this class being unique, we talked about we really should focus on some of the equipment and gear that's out there because, people just don't know what they need, and there's so much stuff that's out there. So as we did the mindset and the spectrum of awareness lecture, and we talked about tactical anatomy, we spent some time in the morning talking about equipment, and I brought, you know, a literal gypsy camp of stuff that I had. You know, some of my plate carriers and body armor still had Iraq dust in them. I had an old H harness from when I started out when I was in the 82nd and in Korea. And then, you know, just down to, hey, you've got a rifle, you've got a pistol, and maybe you get a chance to put an extra magazine on. What are some of the things that you can, you know, do with that? And what equipment do you really need to fill that mission set that's, you know, unique to you? And so we covered some of that stuff, and sling usage was a big thing, because for, you know, what Brian and I have both seen is, you know, people put slings on their guns. There's a variety of things that are out there. Let's get things that work to their advantage, because, you know, what I've in particular seen is that people put a sling on the gun, let it hang around their neck, and unless they're shooting, otherwise it's just hanging around their neck like it's a necklace. And, you know, you can utilize that sling for a lot of other things. And, you know, we highlighted that in the class for added stability when you're shooting in all the positions, and how can we quickly get in and out of position, utilize that sling, and then, you know, loosen up that sling so you have the ability to move to another advantageous position. So, you know, we looked at those things, and then we looked at kind of trying to get that synergistic effect between the rifle and the pistol, and people knowing their limitations with it, so then they could pick the correct tool to fix that problem set. Because, you know, sometimes one is an advantage, sometimes one is a disadvantage, and vice versa. And we wanted people to understand that in a controlled environment.
I think everybody goes down that road in the beginning when you start getting into firearms and rifles and guns, and then you see the pictures online of the Lego AR that has about 45 pounds on a 10-pound rifle. So I guess that's a good segue to talk about it. Brian, tell us what we kind of need for this class. What's the basic minimum requirements as far as gear and ammo and all those things?
Yeah, we had a wide variety. We had people show up with their everyday carry of pistol and a rifle that, and I have to say the rifles were in good shape this time when they came to class, and they ran very well. But they showed up with just their basic, everything was an AR pattern rifle. So any rifle that you could run well that would shoot to the point of aim. Shane will get you going on that. So that's a pretty easy thing. Now, we did see some people with battle belts, which was interesting. We saw a lot of changes with the equipment as time went on, because as Shane and I discussed, living with this equipment is very different than carrying it to the range and shooting it. And 2 days of living with your rifle and your pistol starts to create an efficiency in the mode that you're going to carry it, where you're going to store stuff. And it was interesting to watch people people carrying appendix shooting from the prone, how it affected their position in that. People going from a mechanical offset on the rifle right away to the pistol, whether they could remember which the offset was and how each worked together. And it was a great sourcing out, because we wanted people to know not only what they can do with these things, but what they can't do, and not learn those can't do lessons in the moment of it. This idea germinated a long time ago. I was in a Tom Givens class, and he was quoting somebody else, and I can't remember who it was, but he said, you carry your pistol every day because it's easy and it's available. And if you want to defend your house, a shotgun's a really good choice. And if you go and call 911 and nobody picks up the phone, you ought to get your rifle. And we've seen that, we've seen that it is. And I watched, the Korean store owners defend their store and learn some really hard lessons about, different positional shooting and how to manipulate this. So the idea was to give everybody a chance to work through this. And I think it was very successful contextually in that environment for them to feel going back and forth with it. Usually it's one or the other. This was a class where you got to shoot both consistently back to back. And it's funny to me, like after you shoot your rifle and you get your pistol out, it feels like a pop gun. It feels so inadequate. But I teach performance-based classes all over the country, and when I'm just shooting a pistol, it seems very adequate at the time. And it was interesting to watch one of our guests last time on another show. She said she felt more comfortable with the pistol because she has 80% of her time training with a pistol. So Shane gave her a great entrance into, here's how to use the rifle. You know, if you had to defend your house, here's positions you could shoot from. Here's distances that you could be adequate with. And we had the opposite. We had a couple guys really good on the rifle. And as soon as we started zeroing pistols and we got to 10 yards, I realized, hey, I've got to spend a little bit of time and help them get their fundamentals down, shoot a little bit better with the pistol. So a lot of interesting stuff because we didn't have a lot of plate carriers. And the ones we did were more just kind of chest rigs, light stuff to throw on. So it wasn't, I don't know how to say this, but it wasn't like we had a LARPing class, you know, like everybody showed up with full kit. They just kind of showed up with the idea of the class of here's what you got. Here's how you're going to shoot it.
I love it. I want to, Craig, we were talking about, or Brian was talking about, you know, kind of teasing out the gear and the equipment and some gear and equipment changes. Did you make any gear changes, either how you set it up or make any decisions where you might consider changing specific pieces of your gear through this course? And if so, what did that look like?
The only thing I did is at one point in time, I put a mag carrier on my chest just to do it. I mean, it's the carrier that I carry all the time, but I wasn't going with that throughout the class. But I didn't want to train without it because it adds that extra piece of gear to get stuff hung up on. So I used to use that chest kit a lot and in a lot of training, and I haven't wore it in years. And I thought, you know, I need to put that on. I mean, I ruck every day, and I ruck once a week in my kit with that chest kit and my rifle. Just so I'm walking. I do a lot of woods based stuff. So I try to walk with it, but walking with it and getting on the range and shooting, getting up and down and all that kind of good stuff is not what I normally do. So I wanted to get it on and train in it so that I can, you know, move the rifle around, get it hung up on this and make sure I got to cut that extra cord off or whatever I needed to do. So that was about the only change that I made. Yeah, I had a hoodie on at one point in time, and it was kind of baggy, got in the way. So I put on a better jacket, which is very useful for this type of activity because everything slides on it really good. And that was about the only change that I really made, and it worked pretty well for me.
What were some of the gear changes that you've seen that you saw other students making?
Oh man. Yeah, it was much like what Brian just said. There was a lot of battle belts, and I saw some of those battle belts come off because a lot of what we were doing was one mag in the rifle and, you know, one mag on your belt and one mag in your pistol, one mag on your belt for each. So there wasn't a need to have a big kit on in most of the things that we were doing. So with Brian and Shane gave us plenty of time to study the subject matter, listen to them teach us, and then perform what it is that they were asking us to do. And then when we were needed, we were able to go back and reload mags and count that sort of thing. So it wasn't like we had to have 10 mags on our chest or belt. So I saw a lot of people making that change because it was obviously, you know, it was 2 days of training, and that made us more comfortable. We didn't have to carry all that weight, and that made it, you know, there's a point where wearing all your kit and embracing the suck, you can't continue to retain the knowledge because you're struggling or you're tired or something of that nature. So I felt like people were making the decision as students of Brian and Shane's to get a little bit more comfortable so they could retain the knowledge that was being given to us. And maybe I'm just misjudging that, but I think the changes that were made were maybe to test some things out similar to what I was doing, but also to get more comfortable to, you know, make 2 days of it and get, you know, 100% out of those 2 days rather than, oh man, this sucks. I'm tired and I'm going to buck up and make through this and get through it and all that sort of thing and have that attitude. Everything, you know, I didn't see anybody with that attitude. And that, you know, that's a reflection of Brian and Shane. I mean, they were great instructors. They're laid back. They're direct and pointed when they need to be direct and pointed. They're comfortable and challenging when they need to be, but they're also very humble instructors and teach the way they needed to teach to bring the best out of the people that were there. That's for sure.
Yeah, I think it's usually useful, and people get this kind of messed up when when you know what you don't know. It's very purpose driven, right? If you're going to wake up in the morning and you have to grab one of these guns, what are you going to put on? What are you going to wear? I'm sure Brian and Shane appreciate somebody not walking out in just their underwear to train, but maybe it'll happen. But running this full kit, full gear, unless you're law enforcement or military and that stuff that's necessary for you, I think it kind of hinders your learning. I do think about that. But Shane, just moving over into the course a little bit more, tell us about what day one, what does it look like?
So we started off, in the classroom with introductions and things. And then I think it's very important. We didn't have to do this, before. It was a little bit more intuitive for people, but I think, it's important for us to do it now is, we did a abbreviated mindset lecture that I do at the beginning, all the series that I teach. And, Brian and I talked about it and thought it would be a good idea. And, with that, what goes into building that good protective mindset. We talked about avoidance and de-escalation and the spectrum of awareness, which encompass situational awareness, equipment. We talked about the various zeros that are out there because, there's so many things out there. And, a lot of folks, they go with whatever, is the latest and greatest, but they don't get a chance or have the opportunity to go out and shoot it and see what's theory-based and what's actually reality. And that was one of the things that we were able to do in the coursework. But, we talked about those different things. And at the end of the day, we said, with zeros, we don't care what zero you run, as long as you understand, hey, where do you need to put your sighting system to get the bullet to go where it needs to go to stop that threat, or, in this case, get the hit on the target. We talked a little bit about tactical anatomy because, it's extremely important, especially if you go from the rifle to the pistol, just because of the difference in kinetic energy transfer and that. So where is that tactical anatomy that you need to be getting those shots in a 3D world that we live in? And once we got done there, we moved down to the range and verified the zeros on everybody, which, is pretty typical. When you start talking about the rifle, everybody shows up with a zeroed gun. When you go down there to confirm zeros, there's always got to be tweaking, and it's just, people are traveling and maybe they decide to change their zero. So, we took that. And then once we got that done, then we started working those basic mechanics because one of the things, I always like to say, and I know Brian believes this too, because being in his classes, he harps on them, is there really isn't anything advanced out there. It's just the application of the basics. And sometimes that's in an advanced manner. So we wanted to work that. And we also wanted to work the mechanics of the rifle and the pistol working together in some of the complexities and problems that can arise there. And so we worked through that, throughout the rest of the day. Forming that base layer, and that kind of set us up then for going into day two, where we just continued to build on that base layer. And one of the great things, and it was Brian's idea, and I was all for it, and I think it worked out great, was we talked about once we got past the morning, was that we were going to flip-flop about every hour. So we would do pistol, for an hour and let them take a break. And then we flip-flop to rifle. And when we were putting the curriculum together, it played off each other. So whatever we were doing with one system, it was reinforced with the other system in the next hour. And so we continued to do that until we got into day two. So that was kind of how that first day was tied in.
When we're talking about pistols and rifles, outside of two-gun shooters, there's a segment of our population that's walking around or driving around with a pistol on their hip and close access to a rifle, right? And that's the law enforcement community. Brian, who is this course kind of aimed at? Is it for the law enforcement? Are they welcome to join, but it's not really geared towards them because it's not a tactics-based course? But who would you say this course is kind of specifically designed for?
We did have officers in class, and it was a good showing for them. But basically, this is for the armed citizen to kind of explore this. It was interesting. Some of the things we had to work out with the armed citizen is that the concealed draw has to change dramatically when you have a rifle. It doesn't work the same way. The ways that we've practiced, where our hand positions are, how we access the pistol, and as we've seen people defend with a rifle, it's always occurred to me: is that the first time that gear's really been together in that configuration? With a concealed pistol or no concealed pistol, or really the rifle getting into it. And I've always had, I love complexity and novelty in training, because that is what breeds better shooters, because this is all about being the best shooter you can be with whatever's in front of you. So this was a great chance to give people the idea of, how do these things work together? What's useful? When I was in law enforcement, we had shotguns in our cruiser, and none of us really ever took them with us, because not that they weren't great, but we didn't know if they worked. They had been used as an ashtray probably in the cruiser. And then if you ever had to deal with people, there was no sling for the shotgun, so it became a real problem if you had to go hands on with it. So opening doors, everything was very difficult. And the idea with this is for the person, just as you've clearly said, there's a group of people not only in law enforcement, but they keep truck guns and they keep home defense rifles, and they have the access to these things. Let's get all these lessons out of the way. Let's learn what you're capable of. Let's learn what you're not capable of. Let's give you a great chance to really work on this, so that you get the performance of good shooting, and that's out of the way, and we can get unconscious competence in that. Then we can make sure that the whole checklist works together, and then you can make really good pre-need decisions, whether this is something you can engage in, or if you need to leave, or it makes sense to get a rifle to go do it, or if it's better to ditch the rifle. um, a lot of people don't think about it, but there are certain times in the world that if you pick up a rifle, you're very likely to get shot by somebody you don't want to be shot by. If you're armed in a space and it's clearly seen that you're armed, that can be a real problem too. Greg Ellifat's just put a great article about, he's changed his mind about bringing weapons into non-permissive environments, because he was talking to one of the officers and he said, it's easy. We shoot whoever's got a gun now. So this really changes the idea of how we're doing it. And when we watch the news accounts, and these statistically improbable, but there are times where people are alone in a garage, or they have a chance to grab their gun, or they end up at a shopping center. Or the thing that really set me off was watching the police set up uh, a perimeter around a school and not go in. And I thought, if my grandkids are in there and I've got my kit with me, I'm going in. And it may be the end of me, but there's no way they're going to keep me out of that situation. And as we see it become politically expedient to not take action, which is where we're headed in law enforcement. You are the first responder. You're the only responder sometimes, and you've got to be able to make good decisions with this. So the idea was to give them a chance with the gear, give them a chance with the shooting, but really get them to think about how these things work together. And, with Shane's background, that's what SF guys do. They teach people, and they become a force multiplier. And that's something we can do. We can have well-trained, good decision makers in America that can have access to the equipment they carry on a daily basis and know how to use it well.
Would you say there's a minimum skill set that students need to have with the handgun, the rifle?
Yeah, I think so. One of the things we clearly elaborate, you need to be able to draw from concealment or draw from the battle belt and understand how to do that. One of the hardest things, and Shane may speak to this more, is that the generation of striker fire shooters on handguns really are not very good with safeties. And rifles in general tend to be harder to manage on the line than pistols do, because you can't put it in your holster. So Shane spent a lot of time teaching them how to use their holster, which is their sling, how to keep positive control over the rifle, how to work it out. So the minimum skill would be understanding the mechanical functions of both of them and understanding the draw stroke. And everything else, I think Shane and I were able to work out pretty quickly with everybody on it. It's definitely not for the new shooter. I joked, but I think there was probably about $100,000 worth of equipment on that range. And Shane may have had $25,000 of it. I don't know. But there was a lot of money out there. there was a lot of gear, and people have really invested in good gear now. That's always a tell, right? A good holster tells you where somebody's at. A good sling tells you where somebody's at. A good rifle can tell you where somebody's at, but I'm sure Shane looks at the equipment and says, hey, they're pretty squared away. So minimum investment for people, be able to draw safely, be able to operate both of them, understand the safety rules. And from there, I think we can handle just about anybody that comes through our door.
Speaking of quality gear, this next segment is brought to you by Uncle Mike's Holsters.
I got to go.
Yes. Hey, Shane, just your position on that too. I'm sure you agree with everything Brian said. When you guys send out the emails for class signups, etc., I don't know if your wives do that or you do that, so maybe you have this answer for me. Do you guys put that on a prerequisite as far as, hey, you must be able to do this in order to take this course?
Yeah. So, between, my wife, Callie, and Shelly, they do all the administrative stuff, which is great, which allows us to be out there and do our thing. They send really comprehensive emails out, letting the students know, hey, this is what you need for equipment. In the description, we have prerequisites, so we can get at least a minimum, amount of skill in the class, so it doesn't take away from the learning of everybody else. And then, one of the things that we do, and, we talked to Brian and Shelly on this, is we like to send out associated reading material that goes along with the curriculum that we're teaching. So we had put a link on that takes them to a bunch of different articles and things, so they can kind of do some pre-reading and kind of get an understanding of, hey, this is the curriculum that you're going to teach, or that we're going to teach, in the class. So they've got somewhat of an idea, but with this class, because of the uniqueness of it, we had gotten some questions and things, and they were mostly, equipment specific, because people just didn't really know. Like, Brian so eloquently said, they go out to the range and they shoot. Maybe they do some pistol, maybe they do some rifle. They have one that is, more their favorite than the other. And when this class came out, and Brian and I, it was pretty funny, because my wife, I was getting all my gear together, and I'd come up with my plate carrier and battle belt and all this, and she snapped a picture of it and put it on social media. And Brian, from what I understand, was doing the exact same thing. And Shelly had said, "Oh my God, what's going on?" Just like my wife did. And so that elicited a few questions of, like, I'm not going to be like that in the class. We're like, no, don't worry about it. Just look at the emails, and it's worded in there what you need, and so you can have expectation management and that. So yeah, I think it all worked out pretty well. By the time we were all said and done, everybody had a good idea of what they needed to be able to fill the role that they saw the rifle and the pistol within their individual protective system.
When we're talking about gear and equipment, is there anything? And let me preface this. I want to give a shout out to Locked In Grip again, right? Because it's something that I hadn't thought about personally as bringing with me, or gear or equipment. And it's not something that I don't think I've ever seen it on on a recommended equipment or gear list. But years ago, I went out, and I've told the story before. I was taking a class out in Arizona, and at Walmart, I was with a buddy, and he's like, let's pick up some of this sports chalk, and it was not very good. And so that kind of was like, all right, well, that was a waste of however much it cost me, $15 at Walmart or whatever it was. And then fast forward to Andy introducing me to Locked In Grip, and really the quality of that product has shifted my opinion on something that I can bring with me as a student to the range to improve my overall training experience. And it's something super affordable, easy to throw on your range bag or in your range bag. Is there anything like that you've seen show up in class, or that you've brought with you as a student, that can really improve the quality of training that the student receives? And kind of kick it around to each one of you guys, and whoever wants to start that off. Shane, we'll go with you since you're on the big screen.
Well, I think when you're talking about rifles and that, and Brian had and I had this discussion, is a set of good gloves. Because with the rifle, and especially some of the drills that we did, the back to one drill, for example, which is a heavy round count, those guns get extremely hot. And, if the student doesn't think about it and they've never done a high round count drill, they've never experienced that heat that's coming off of that handguard. So, something like that I think is very beneficial to them. And then just more administrative wise, things like, having a hat, having sunscreen, water, things like that, when they take a break, they can rehydrate, they can let their brains cool a little bit, and, really have an enhanced experience while they're in the class.
That makes sense. Brian, what about any other gloves? Is a great piece of advice. I hadn't thought about that.
I think especially in rifle class, but pistol also, I carry a couple of neck gaiters or shamags with me at all the times, especially when we see collars that are more open, and the ejection pattern of some rifles or pistols make sure everything falls right in the person's neckline. And the real problem is that becomes a real safety issue, because as much as they suck it up, they're not present in that moment. So it's something I always carry with me, and I try to get ahead of them with it. The other thing I'd say is, with the prevalence of optics, there are so many people that get dot focused, that one of the things that I bring with me is blue masking tape to make sure that I can check their vision by occluding the optic and see how they look. And inversely, I also bring a lens cleaner, because some of them are so sucked into looking at the dot, they can see the dirt on the lens, which means they're not target focused in that moment. And those are two things that help immensely. I'd say the final thing, and it becomes necessary, especially when you're shooting 1,000 rounds, is carrying some good lubricant for the students, so that they can lubricate their guns in a moment. A basic maintenance tool like fix-it sticks, and having a screwdriver with you, because I make everybody zero their pistol every time. It's something that rifle classes do. It's something pistol classes should do too. Now, especially with optics, you can zero your optic, but even if you can't, you should know where your iron sights have to be held in each moment. And a new thing I've been carrying with me is handheld lasers, so that I can give visual go signals. I can see how long it takes them to react to the visual signal. We didn't get to use it in this class, but hopefully next time we'll be able to schedule it in, how long it takes them to stop on the signal. And it makes the class more interesting, especially when they get fatigued on that second day. About that 3 o'clock, you ate too many carbs and you're feeling a little tired. So it's something new to shake up the class a little bit.
I like it. Locked in grip keeps your gun, locked in grip, keep your gun wet, but your hands dry. Craig, what's that?
I said that was solid. Hey, real quick,
Yes.
before we go over to Craig, I'm going to be at TACCon next week, and thanks to Locked In Grip, they've given me a whole bunch of little sample packs. So if you see Andy out on the range with his RSO shirt on, I'll have a pocket full of them. So come by, say hi, shake my hand, and I'll give you a sample.
All right, that's
My
awesome, man.
Nice.
Kind of, Craig, I want to talk to you. I want to get your perspective on that. Is there anything that you found, as a student, as an instructor, that can enhance or improve your training? And then also, I want you to talk to us a little bit about maybe what the biggest obstacle or the challenge was for you through this course.
Well, as far as gear, let me speak to something that you brought up that I think was really fantastic from this course, was the pre-class information. Shane mentioned it some, and Brian's mentioned it some, but as a student and a guy who runs a school that teaches a bunch of classes a year, I was impressed with the amount of pre-class information for two reasons. One, I felt like I had all the information I needed to get down there, find a hotel room, knew where class was going to be, knew what my round count needed to be, what kind of equipment I needed to bring to do the class, but also just the commitment that these guys made to sending in a host of stuff that I'll read for the next year and continue to digest, because it was just good information, which shows a commitment from them as instructors to their students. It's just that simple. But as far as gear, I think I had to give $100 to Brian for one of those neck gaiters because I got the brass hickeys like 3 times. I mean, I had brass once that I was so tough and I was taking it and I could feel it, smell it, and every bit of it sizzling on my neck. And I was like, screw this. I'm in a class. I'm going to take that off. I mean, it was like, I wish I had one of those neck gaiters. But for those that are new to come into a class, I cannot recommend enough good ear pro that you can hear the instructor speak when they're just teaching and talking without having to take your ear pro on and off. That's an investment that I made as a newbie to the gun community, a long time ago, but it's just absolutely, I'm very appreciative of making sure that I have plenty of batteries coming for that as well. But the other thing that, as somebody who doesn't train as much as these two fine instructors do, trying to find out the secret mix for me and how I'm going to use my sling, how I'm going to attach it to my firearm and to my rifle, and how, I love coming to classes like this and looking at these guys who really know what they're doing and what they're doing. Not to be a fanboy and just imitate them, but they also obviously have a lot of time behind the gun. I want to imitate them because they know what they're doing. So the same thing can be said about the students that I was on the line with. There's some of the students that were fantastic shooters and fantastic just individuals in general. So I try to take in what everybody's doing, whether it's a gun belt or their sling, how their sling is attached, how many people I came in with a red dot on the rifle and iron sights on the pistol, and I didn't do too bad, really. I didn't think, but it was interesting to see how many people had dots on their pistols now, and it had been a while since I've been in a class, so that was something new to me, and I think I'll be upgrading, going that direction after seeing how that applied this class.
Another quick plug for Brian there. Craig, did he loan you any of those HKs with the dot wire in class?
He didn't, but man, he made it attractive. I'll put it that way. Top shot of the class got a Holosun. And I'd never been, quite frankly, I'd never been in a class where that was a thing. So that amped up. One of the guys with me is a former service Marine, and just, he did not want to lose, man. He was all about getting that Holosun. But yeah, I like that, and I was shooting for it too. But that's good stuff.
Man, Holosun is really stepping up their sponsorship game. It's I know Brian, their sponsor, and Brian, Riley, Tim Herron. Last year, if you went out and took a class with these guys, if you did well, you got a certificate, and you did really well, you got a certificate and a handshake and a high five. And now if you're the top shot in Brian's class, you get a freaking dot, man. That's freaking, that's pretty cool, man. That's pretty awesome to hear.
It makes you want to go to Brian's classes more, because if you go to Quest, they give away all kinds of stuff. Everybody gets to take home a pepper spray and a trainer. I think I won a certificate for a C&H Precision milling that I did for my wife's gun. Like, come on, you go to Brian's house, he feeds you dinner, steak. He does all these amazing things. I'm just kidding about that, Brian. Don't kill me. No, Brian really takes really good care of you guys on the anybody on the range in his classes. So another shout out to him. Shane, I don't know what you do because I haven't taken a course from you yet, but I don't know. If you don't do what Brian does, you better step up your game.
Well, you better come check us out then, man.
I really appreciate. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was going to move into day number 2 with Craig and just tell us what day 2 looked like for you, what you thought of it, what more challenges specifically you had.
Well, day 2, we started putting a lot of things together from day 1, where we started doing more transitions. And then we had a testing portion, I guess we would call it, at the end, where we got to fall under some time constraints. And again, the whole idea of being top shot was there as well. So, and I would like to say something about that did add in some competition stress. I mean, I don't buy into that crap, but it does add that in somewhat. But what I also saw was everybody really excited. I think that gentleman's name was Scott, Brian, that won. Shane.
Yeah.
When Scott won, everybody was excited for Scott because, I mean, he shot really well. And it's one of them things where you're competing with yourself more than anything else. And then you're happy when whoever wins, because we're all trying to make each other grow better. That's what the competition's about, is trying to make other people grow. Now, as far as my own personal difficulties or struggles, I have got some serious issues with, I mentioned it earlier, I don't want to harp on it, but I could not shoot from prone without a lot of pain in my neck, a lot of pain due to some issues. But so Shane was gracious that I didn't have to do that in the last shoot, and I tried to do it before I used my range bag as support, and it worked pretty well. But as for me personally, since you asked me, that was my struggle. But we also learned how to overcome that, so that I have to find myself in that position whether I like it or not. Callie's putting a message in there saying she's got me on the brass dance. That's pretty awesome. You need to send me that, Callie, please. So yeah, that was my personal struggle, was that particular position. But we learned these other positions, and I don't think I'd ever shot in seated with my elbows on my knees position. I'm not a tactical guru like you guys, so I don't know that I'd ever shot that. And that's what I shot out to 300 and missed by 2 inches. I was pretty impressed with the instruction I was given to give me that, because I don't personally have that skill. It was the skill that the instructors gave me to get out there. That was for sure.
And you killed it, man.
Oh, I'd hit that dude. I wouldn't hit him right dead center, but I'd hit him.
Keep it up. You get a free holosub.
There you go, man. There you go.
Nice. I want to talk a little bit about, with our other Range Buddy app, the collection of shooting drills. What are some drills, Shane, that you like having students run? And let's focus specifically on the rifle drills that you like to have students run through in the course, and then we'll kick it over to Brian for the handgun stuff.
Sure. And I mentioned it earlier. We did it after we got some of the mechanics done. We had the students run a drill that I called back to one. I think it was it Shannon, Brian, that mentioned it? It's kind of a takeoff casino drill. So it has the color shapes and numbers, but then it has a bottle with the vitals in the center. And it's a very high round count drill. It's like 48 rounds. You have to do an emergency reload. You start off with the red triangle number 1, and you shoot 1 round there, and then 1 round to the bottle, and then you go back to 1, and then to 2 in the body. So the number and the shape corresponds to the number of rounds, and you're also putting that in the body, and then going back to 1. So there's several things that you're doing there. It's a high round count drill, which is a little bit longer than traditionally with drills. So it helps solidify, some of the skill sets that you're trying to work. You're doing multi-target. So they have to work through getting out of their sight and, getting their eyes to where they're going to drive the gun. They're working it all under a cognitive load. They have to do an emergency reload. There's just a lot of things that are working there. And then, on top of it, because sometimes we have to have that funness and novelty in there. It's just a fun drill to do. And Brian and I were looking at it, after the first iteration, and just the brass everywhere. And, we're like, America, it's freedom right there. But so, that was a good drill, because it worked a lot of things and really pushed people, because it's really easy to get lost in that. So, they need to stay present. They need to stay focused on what they're doing, and they need to work that conscious mind where they're critically thinking and problem solving. But then the shooting part should be, from a subconscious level. So that's one of the big drills that we ran that I really liked. And I think the students enjoyed it too and got a lot out of it.
Hey, real quick, Jeremy, before you ask Brian, I got a question for him that I've heard it pop up a couple times. I know the answer, but I want to hear it from Brian's voice. Mentioning being present, right? Tell us a little bit more about what present means, and then you can move into your favorite drill.
So there's 4 principles to practice. One is a clear goal, and you can only pursue one thing at a time. So in shooting, that's either accuracy and precision, speed and efficiency, or performance mode, which is to balance your current level of skill. The second one is to be present, and it sounds very Zen-esque. And as a martial arts instructor, I do favor that sometimes. But what it means is to feel your shooting and to see your shooting. And that's very specific in connection to what you're shooting. Can I feel my grip? Can I feel my trigger? And then your perception, is the sights entering the target in a way that's expected? And when I fire, do they react as they are? And if you do those two things, you'll be shooting at a different level, because it induces the biochemical side of our body, our biology, to actually excrete certain hormones that allow us to focus better. The other thing is that you have to get an immediate feedback loop, which is being able to call your shots off the sights that you're doing, which is the feedback loop. And the final part of that is the challenge ratio skill. So we have to be able to challenge ourselves just enough that we don't stretch or snap too far. And when those things are present, we get a much better training experience. And it is something that an instructor has to manipulate constantly, because we are technical managers, but more importantly, we're EQ managers. And we're working on the emotional quotient of the student and how they're responding to the psychological and physiological stressors that are happening. There is no difference between imagined and real stress. The body reacts to it the same way. So it's something that we're teaching through breath, and it's always through breath to be present. If you're overexcited, you have to take a long sigh and just let it out. That changes the heart rate, changes the way that the cardiovascular and nervous system's working. If you're not excited enough, you take a double nasal inhale, which gets you more present in a moment. And often we say to somebody, be present, so they think about being present while they talk to themselves inside their head. And that's the opposite of what we're trying to do. Laney Basham said it best: you have to remember what good shooting feels like and looks like at the same time.
Awesome. Thank you. Now back to Jeremy's question. What's your favorite handgun drill, or one of them that you'd like to utilize on the range?
I love what you guys are doing with the Range Buddy app. That is just fantastic. I'm a metric-driven instructor, and I want people to know who they are as a shooter. I came up with a new drill for this class because I was thinking we need to use the pistol or the rifle in such a way that frees us as if we were living. So I have a mix 6 drill, which is kind of a busy hands drill. It teaches people to draw from different positions while they're doing different tasks. What I did with the rifle instead is we did a rifle transition as if it was empty, and then you just draw and fire 2 on a bullseye. It's at 7 yards. We did it as if you were using a flashlight, which would preclude using the rifle. And although we see much more of it, most rifles don't have a light when they should have a light. And if you had a handheld light, you might not want to exchange. You might want to go to the pistol so you could still be able to see it. I did drop the phone. You're standing around talking, you're on the phone, things kick off. You could either go from the slinged rifle or the pistol. We did a failure to neutralize drill, which is always great. And we did verbal commands, because I find it's very difficult to get people to shoot and speak. And it's a big part of self-defense. And then we did just a regular rifle transition drill. We drew and fired 2 and then reloaded and fired 2. And it's to teach them to cognitively stack. It's an easy scoring system. It's only 15 rounds. It's on a bullseye. It's 150 points. And then I can teach them how to score the most easy of all targets that's most available to everybody, which is a B8. And it gives them something that they can practice. And all these drills could be modified to be done at a range, indoors, because a lot of times you can't draw, or they could be done outdoors. And I think what you guys are doing is offering people a way to make their practice deliberate, purposeful, and mindful, instead of just going and shooting, which never yields the results we want to. One good rep when you're fully present is much more valuable than 100 when you're not.
I really appreciate hearing that. It started off as a small passion project for myself, and I was like, it might be me, might be Andy that uses it, and we're getting close to 9,000 users, which is awesome. And then the next big update that we have, I'm hoping to roll out to beta testers in the next couple days and roll out to everybody in the next 2 weeks. I think it's going to be really something cool for the firearms training industry. So thank you for your kind words. I want to ask Craig, with this being the inaugural course offering, what was your biggest takeaway from the class?
I had several, but the biggest would definitely be the mindset required to even though we were shooting on we were shooting at different distances, but in the real world, we're going to be moving at those distances. And it was the only question I asked during the class out loud, but being cognizant of mechanical offset while you have to be on the move and shooting at different distances is a thing. And we were not having people shoot at us. We were not running and gunning. We were, standing and delivering basically, but still I was finding difficulty even in this class of, okay, now we're at 15 yards rather than 50, of recognizing quickly, okay, I'm going to have to deal with mechanical offset here where I wasn't the last go. And that's just, and the answer that I got is the same answer I give people. So it just pissed me off. But Shane said, just do the work, man. Just do the work. And I was like, oh man, I say that all the time. I mean, it's the same. I mean, it's true though. I mean, I just got to do the work. I mean, so that was good. It was a good lesson to be in the midst of that being, I would say that was my best takeaway, is being mindful of that is difficult for me. So yeah, how to apply that is just doing the work. Thank you, Shane.
Yes, sir.
We started off talking about how you guys came together and developed the curriculum. And I kind of want to end the episode on what your guys' thoughts are on how this course will evolve. Are there any changes that you're going to make that you kind of fleshed out during the first course? And where do you see, the big things moving and shaking with this course?
So all curriculum's got to be living. It's a huge mistake we made as martial arts instructors to make things static and say this is the way things are. So I imagine when Shane and I will talk, we will talk about how we can improve the course, things that we would like to do differently. We also see the way it affects our students, which is always feeding the teacher. As you're teaching and watching your clients perform, it allows you to grow. I think context is a big part of this. We got a really good feel for what people were really good at, what weren't good at. But this first class may not be indicative of other classes because it had a lot of our alumni in it. So everybody was pretty well situated. They knew what was coming with it. The things that I would like to see growing in this class is this idea that they're not two separate worlds, that whatever you pick up, you are competent to the task, and that we can help you grow in it, and we can find a way for you to practice this. A large majority of the drills that we taught can be practiced dry. One of the great things I offer for mechanical offset is the Manus makes a Blackbeard, which is a bolt that goes in your rifle with a magazine that recycles the trigger. It fires a laser at the wall. If you have scaled targets, you can practice endlessly what the offset is and see the hits right away. So it's a great way for you to really improve in the moment and get better at this. I think it was really good as an instructor to share the stage with somebody else. It keeps us cognizant and humble of what we're good at and what we're not good at. It also allows you to share the discipline with somebody else. And the one thing that draws me to Shane is that he puts his students over his personality, over his preferences. He teaches his principles to them, and he wants nothing more than them to succeed. And we both have to be very grateful because our wives are involved in our business. Shelly and Kelly do a fantastic job, and they're on top of things all the time. And one of the reasons that it's well organized is that. And as a personal note for me, it's often hard not to get stuck into teaching my pistol class while I'm doing this. I felt a real draw just to fall back on the standards of the pistol class. This is what I do in my pistol class, so I should do it now. And since Shane had the bigger topic in the early morning as far as rifle, I tried to adapt whatever he said. He had written this curriculum out, whatever he did next. I tried to do something that dovetailed with that. But I found it very hard not to fall into old habits, which means that's good for me. As a judo player, you know exactly what I'm talking about. We have our favorite techniques that we use, but we always should be evolving, and we want to get maximum efficiency with minimum effort. So I look forward to it. I think Shane and I are uniquely suited to work together because we're very different in a lot of ways, but very similar in other ways. and we come from different backgrounds. So it's not just two guys saying the same thing. I think it strengthens each other's message, it matches, and it helps the clients grow. So we're going to do it at his range in September, and it'll be different. This time we were pretty well situated because I brought 3 assistant instructors, and we had a very nice range with 350 right next to each other. So it gave us a lot of chances to do that. So I look forward to seeing it grow. I don't know where it's going to go. We're going to watch for context, and we're going to see what the clients desire, and we're going to see what the market dictates.
Awesome. Shane, your thoughts on how it's going to evolve?
So I think Brian said it great. As an instructor, our curriculums are living and breathing. They're always changing. I tell the class every time I teach the class, regardless, it's always a little bit different because the student is who drives the class. And, the great thing about when Brian and I work together, because, and he said it perfectly, we come from very different backgrounds and experiential bases. But, our personalities seem to really mesh, and our abilities to instruct together mesh really well. But we have that flexibility that as the students come in and we start to evaluate and see where they're going, we have that ability to be able to flex the curriculum so they get the, most benefit out of it. And so, with the students driving the class and their experiential base, we have the ability to change it and, spend more time on something, because both of us are performance-based types of curriculum that if they don't get that, we're going to spend time there because it doesn't make any sense to go on to the next thing. So I'm excited also to see where it's going to go. The students are largely going to drive where it goes. We're going to have, our curriculums that are kind of set that we talk about. But just like in this class, we had expectations of things that we were going to do, and that changed pretty quickly as we were going through. But having that ability to switch, I think, is important. And the next one, it's going to be different than the first. And the one after that is probably going to be different, from the last 2. So, but I think we're going to continue to make it better. And one of the things that the question I pose to the students at the end of the day, any class, is, do you feel better prepared now that we've got through this curriculum today than you were when you walked in? And if we can achieve that and we get a head nod up and down, I think we're doing our jobs and we're being the best that we can be and giving them the best curriculums that we can.
That's awesome. And I know you guys are a couple hours ahead of us, so I definitely want to give you your night back. Before I do that, I love asking the laziest question in podcasting, and is there anything that we should have talked about or we should have mentioned that we haven't gotten to yet? And Shane, I'll leave you on the big screen. Is there anything that we missed that we should have talked about with regards to the class or anything else?
Man, no, I don't think so. I think we covered it pretty well.
Awesome. What about you, Brian?
So I will tell you this, there's a lot of the drills that we did in class. I have a complete video library of it on YouTube for free. So that's something that people can follow up. Shane tends to be a man of the written word, and I tend to be a man of the videos. So that's a great part of it. As this grows, my hope is to do a cataloging video of skills you should develop for this class. And I think that would be very helpful for them to see the shooting part of it. Otherwise, I think we covered it in pretty good detail. You did a good job asking questions on it. Of course, you didn't ask the most important question. Which one of us looked the best on the range? Who looked cooler? No, that's important.
Well, that's because Craig told me in the pre-show that it was him, and there's no
he did.
reason to ask it.
He won.
Oh man, I just dropped the link to your the Complete Combatants YouTube channel in the comment section, so it should be anywhere this was live streamed. There should be a link to your YouTube channel there for all of the videos that you guys have, and it's a ton of great information. It's one of the things that we've talked about on the last couple podcasts with the roundtable discussion is it's really energizing to see all of the information, all of the expertise that's being shared by really the top level instructors, right? Yourself and absolutely included in that, where it's really providing value for folks without asking for anything in return. And I think it speaks to your reputation and who you are. And I know that you commit a ton of yourself to your craft and your art. Andy had the pleasure of training with you at the Quest and has had nothing but great things to say about you and Shelly. So it's really cool, and I really do appreciate you having us on, or joining us. God dang it, Andy! One of these days,
Whatever, man.
Really appreciate you having us on our podcast tonight.
You're welcome. I hope you'll join me next week because I won't be here.
Yes. Well, thank you for carrying it. Thank you for helping carry it. Craig, what did we miss, man? Should we have talked about anything about the class, or and then tell us where we can find more about you, man? I know Andy already signed up for your next man tracking class. I think he has a different idea on what that is, but
I think we've covered it really well, gentlemen. I appreciate you all having me on. It's been a pleasure to be here. Just to reiterate something I said, the instructors were who they were, but the students were who they were as well. There was none of that guys in class. Everybody was top notch. Everybody was helping each other, filling mags, carrying people's gear, helping one another get to and from, and all that kind of. It was just a team effort, which was again a reflection of these two guys as instructors. So I'd like to add that, and then I just threw in my link tree in our chat here if somebody wants to grab that and share for anybody that wants it. That's a link to everything that I do. So thank you for that opportunity to share that. I appreciate it very much.
Wow, I wish we had another couple hours that we could steal from time from both of you, or all three of you guys. Every now and then, actually pretty often, we get into some shows where it's like there's so many more questions I want to ask. But then these guys ask me, what's your PayPal, and they request money and all those things, so I can't do that. But anyway, guys, I appreciate you coming on tonight. I do have one final thing. Brian, I think it's really important that we discussed in the pre-show. I wanted to talk about a little bit. You and Shelly have a pet project that you absolutely love. And I think it bears a little bit of information that you give out there, and maybe we can get some people to kind of help out. So tell us about that.
My wife is the light of the world, and I'm the darkness, apparently. And she came up with this idea of saving police horses and correction horses. What happens is, as they age out, they're often auctioned off, and they're at the end of the service. They've probably got a little bit of lameness, and they end up working for another 10 years when they don't need to. So what she's done is committed to, we have 5 right now. There's 3 at our home, 2 at another location. And she's made this charity called Blue Line Ponies. And it's all these horses were either correction horses, or they work for the prison system. They work for police officers. And it's, they say when you have a horse or a dog as your partner in law enforcement, you have absolutely the best partner in the world. And I can tell you that's absolutely true with this. These horses are wonderful. Shelly's doing a great job, and we keep them on our range. And they basically get to live their life out in comfort after a life of service. And we take great care of them. We do a little bit of groundwork, ride them a little bit. And they're mostly just cared for, and they live on beautiful pasture in the Dahlonega Mountains, and they look at cows every day. So I appreciate you letting me plug that. It's near and dear to our hearts, and it's just brought nothing but happiness and joy to my wife, which she deserves every bit of that she can have.
Absolutely. I got to say, you guys have pretty amazing wives, as well as myself and Jeremy. And I don't know about you, Craig, so I can't speak about your wife, but with the whole man tracking thing, maybe it's husband, whatever. It's your choice.
No, I've got a beautiful, wonderful wife of 33 years. So yeah, I'm very blessed as well, like you guys. So yeah, thank you. No, I'm not. Man tracking is hopefully what you all think it is, despite what Andy is suggesting.
It's pretty bad when you mentioned it in the beginning, and I was like, oh, there's a joke there, but Jeremy took it, so I'm happy with that.
His wife just can't find him. He's out in the woods. She doesn't know where he is.
Searching for man. Where do you think he is? All right. Well, we got your information, Craig. Shane, can you tell us where we can find you in the future, as well as you, Brian?
Yeah, so you can get us. Our website is www.personalsurvivalsolutions.com. We're on Facebook, Instagram. We've got a YouTube channel that we need to get some more content on, but that's going to be coming soon. And then LinkedIn, they're all at Personal Survival Solutions. If you go to the website, our emails are on there, personal phone numbers, and all that. That's the way that you can get a hold of us.
TheCompleteCombatant.com. That's TheCompleteCombatant.com. Everything's on there. We're on YouTube. We're on Instagram. We're on X. We're on everything. That sounds funny when you say you're on X now, doesn't it? That's a 90s feedback there. But we very active on all of it and giving away great information. The schedule's there. Shelley does a wonderful job. She has a specific title that I made up. She's the indispensable organizational wizard, and everything is available there. Whatever you need, you can find on it. I'm traveling the nation. I head out to Missouri next week and Utah after that. And then I've got Grand Junction with the Girl in the Gun National Conference. So please look for me. Please come to class. I'd love to meet you. I'd love to train with you.
And then Craig is at naturereliance.org.
Yes. Yes. I'm sorry. I thought I was on mute. naturereliance.org. But that link tree has links to all my socials and my books and all that kind of good stuff as well. Yeah.
Awesome. And we should have links to all of those in the comments, and we'll have them in the show notes. Really do appreciate you guys joining us this evening, sharing your time and your expertise with us. For our listeners, thank you for joining us. Remember, it's your life, it's your safety and protection, it's your responsibility. Y'all stay safe, and we'll see you next week.